Hi, welcome to Candid Conversations with DocV, where real talk about real experiences and circumstances is the norm and not the exception. To help you heal, rebuild, and transform your life from the inside out so that you can start to connect the dots and put you back in business. I'm Doc V, the Pivot Maestro, here to provide transparent conversation to help you navigate career and life issues, think without a box, and perhaps provide that occasional reality check that we all sometimes need. Topics of our conversation will run the gamut, and you are lucky enough to be viewing episode 1, My Story. We'll be focusing on and providing revelation, reconciliation, and renaissance surrounding various issues having to do with women in the workplace, joy, and career transition, with one mission in mind: to help you define your path. And one message: you are mission essential. So, let me share a little bit about myself with you. My why. My why is to why Candid Conversations with Doc V. If I am going to ask you to come along on this journey with me, I want you to know my why and my story. So my why comes from, it's simple, my pain points, the things I have experienced in life, my path that I have been walking out. That's the first why. The second why is to validate and create a safe haven for you. I know I'm not alone in this walk as a woman in the workplace. So we will have things in common. And I want to provide that background, those experiences that I have been through, to help you navigate that so that you, the third why, hopefully will not fall into some of the pitfalls that I fell into. And the ultimate why is to provide hope and freedom in thinking and your being. So hopefully you can get behind those four. Again, the why from my pain points, that's how this all started. This is how defining paths started. This is where I learned to pivot and acquired my moniker, the Pivot Maestro. To create a safe haven for you, number 2, to help provide the life and lifestyle that you want to live by avoiding some of the pitfalls or navigating them a bit more gracefully than I did, and to ultimately provide hope and freedom in your thinking and being. So if you can get behind that, let me share a little bit about me and my story. So my story, I don't come from wealth. I'm a self-made woman, like many of you. I've started off in the workplace. I've done the parallelpreneur thing, which many of you may be on that journey. And I'm from a small town and on the southeast coast of Texas called Victoria. My parents, I grew up a single child. I had self-inflicted performance anxieties like probably many of you, and a host of other issues that were masked very well, as I might say, at being a star athlete, being a scholar, being a performer, one of the top performers in my choir, and you name it, I excelled at it. I made myself excel at it. I pushed myself to compensate, for those pain points that I was experiencing. My parents divorced when I was 15 years old. My mother remarried to a wonderful man, my stepfather. He adored me. I loved him dearly, but I did go through a rebellious phase, just trying to deal with all of the emotions in my head, my heart, and in my body. When I was 17, I discovered that I had a hereditary non-surgical eye condition, which really ended my hope of donning a military uniform and serving my country in that way. But as life would have it, that came full circle. But we'll save that conversation for a later day. And, this was my first pivot in life, really. At the age of 17, 18. And little did I know that there were many more to come. But, that pursuit that I was looking at, that life of service in uniform was no longer an option. I could not follow the path of so many in my family. And that was hard for me to deal with. But what were my options? I couldn't just give up, throw up my hands. I've always been a fighter that way. So I went on to college. And in college, I went through a number of experiences, just dealing with, again, those pain points that I had hidden, that I had covered up, that I didn't even know I was carrying. All of these hurts, hangups, and habits that we have in life that we form along the way, that when our bodies cannot process the trauma, we don't know what to do with it. But nevertheless, I had mastered the art of wearing masks. I had so many masks in my closet. I'm surprised they weren't falling out. But when I was in my graduate program, I had the opportunity to step into a role as the first female, the second to hold this position of any kind, the executive director of the National Panhellenic Council, and the youngest person. I was in my mid-20s. I, again, wearing those masks and faking it till you make it, but I had a knack to figure out things. My background in the vocal and performing arts, in studying music, really equipped me with skills that I had no clue that it had. But I'll share a little bit more on that later. So, as life continued to happen, and, I continued to redefine my path, myself again and again, I ended up becoming a professor at Indiana University Bloomington and a director of a holistic scholarship program where actually the seeds were planted for what I do now, what I love to do as a passion, and that's to help people define their paths. So, while I was this director at this prestigious university in the Midwest, and, this program really the first of its kind in the country, I started to encounter difficulties in the workplace. And it made me question myself. It made me question my philosophies. It made me question a lot of things. And this encounter was my first encounter with being a woman in the workplace, having to deal with my gender, with equal pay, with discrimination, you name it, a host of issues that I was battling while wearing my mask, while keeping the smile on, grace under pressure, and doing my thing, making sure my students were taken care of and carrying out the mission that was before me. So my revelation still did not come at that point. It did not come until much later, when I finally started dealing with these wounds that I had been carrying all of my life. It really was not until I got sick and tired of being sick and tired and found my willpower, took control, and started to connect the dots by applying lessons that I had learned. And see, it really takes us to get to the point of being sick and tired of being sick and tired to move to action, doesn't it, ladies? So this allowed me to start to reconcile my hurts, the hang-ups, the habits that were presenting obstacles to my healing and rebuilding for my transformational renaissance. And these hang-ups and hurts that I was dealing with were causing my inability to take back my power, to walk in strength and the power of a woman, and to doubt and question my abilities. So that included the approval of man. Now, where did that stem from? Oh, and this will be an episode down the road. But the approval of man was at the center of that. And why is all of this that I've shared with you just a brief outline of my life up until my revelation? The reason it matters, the reason and the thing that this has to do with the workplace is everything, ladies. It is absolutely has to do with everything. Your story may not look like mine. I'm sure it's different, probably quite different. But what I do know for a fact, that there are common themes. There are common themes. I'm sure you're finding resonance and like experiences or feelings that you've experienced being a woman in the workplace. The loss of joy, the questioning, the feeling of being debased, the feeling of a lack of worth. We have fought so long and hard to fit a mold that was never meant for us. It was never meant for us to fit. But yet, we continue to bang our heads up against that wall. We continue to strive and pursue a standard that was never set for us, that was never meant for us. To be accepted on terms and an agenda we had no say or hand in making. Agendas that have pitted sister against sister. And why? It all starts back with ourself, our person. A rediscovery of that. It starts with it's all about a lack of self-love that we've been harboring, that stems from those hurts, that trauma. To fill a void, to climb a ladder, to prove something to someone else, or receive love from someone else because we've not found it in ourselves. That's where it stems from, ladies. And I'm not saying achievement is a bad thing. It is not. I share just a few things that I accomplished before the age of 40. Now I'm over that. But achievement is not bad. It's a wonderful thing when it's on your own terms and based on your purpose-filled life and passion. Let me say that again, ladies. Achievement is not bad in and of itself. It's a wonderful thing. It's a beautiful thing when you achieve on your terms and based on your passions, your purpose-filled life, not to please someone else or to fulfill someone else's life dream or expectations of you. These are just some examples of the hurts, honestly, that I experienced, that drove my performance anxieties, that led to a lot of the heartache and heartbreak that I have experienced throughout my life. And it was not until I decided to deal with me first, to make sure I was whole, that my health and wellness was and is a priority, not just out in the world, but even and more importantly in the workplace. Why? Because we spend the majority of our life, the majority of our day in the workplace. And you have to protect yourself from the potential toxins, the potential darkness that can come in. The competition that, let's face it, as human beings, we're used to because we start as children. We're started out on this path of competition with the next person or with ourselves. So it's natural. Don't beat yourself up, but know it, recognize it. And that's what these candid conversations, that's what it's going to be all about. Providing you revelation, reconciliation, so that you can reconcile. And then you can move into your renaissance, the true you. So think about this, ladies. Now, we have been through women's equality, the joint resolution back in, 1973, where August 26th, I believe, where Congress came to, or made August 26th Women's Equality Day. Prior to that, women's suffrage in 1920. And think about the women's suffrage in 1920. That actually started in the late 1800s. Well, actually, I think it was the mid 1800s in Seneca Falls, New York. It was a part of a larger movement, a larger women's rights movement. Just think about that, mid 1800s, so let's say 1850, thereabout. A movement that took until 1920 for the right to vote. And then decades later, in 1973, the need for, or the final recognition, not final recognition, but a recognition of women's equality. And the right for women to say, I am more than, on paper. But ladies, we are more than, and it's going to take a movement like the Win-Win Women movement, like the Love the Skin You're In movement, of women coming back together, having these candid conversations about our experiences, being honest with not only each other, but starting with ourselves, and healing from the inside out, so that you can reclaim your power in the workplace. Or should you decide to make a career transition outside of the workplace, for those of you who are in that parallelpreneur life, you're looking to be an entrepreneur. It's all about redefining, and discovering the true you. And while we're on that topic, let's talk about that whole redefinition process. One of, going back to my pain points and experiences prior to my revelation in 2016, when I was when life happened, moving from the National Panhellenic Council to going into the university setting, and even after I left the university setting, in various interviews, people could not figure, the interview panels could not wrap their minds around who I was or what I did, because I was so diverse. See, remember, let's go back to the earlier conversation. Life kept happening, and I had to keep pivoting. I had to keep altering my plan, coming up with plan A, B, C, all the way to Z. I'm sure I'm probably there now. And that's okay. But before the revelation, I did not know that was okay. I thought something was wrong with me, that I was broken. And it was not until I was sitting at this point in a cancer wing. Now, I did not have cancer. I was in there receiving iron infusions for a condition, for a health issue known as uterine fibroids. Many of you may have experienced, may know about that. I dealt with it, battled it two previous times, but this last time it came on fast and furious. So I literally was in a state, in a condition where my doctors did not want to proceed with the surgery because it could have killed me. And so as I'm sitting in the wing and I'm experiencing a vast age range of individuals who are there with me, who are getting chemo treatments and having the various cancer treatments, sitting there right next to me, a light bulb started to go off. That was the start of my first revelation. Because what I have not shared is that was actually right on the tail end of a major heartbreak in my life. In which, again, I started questioning because I had not dealt with those heartaches and heartbreaks and hang-ups in the way that I thought I had. A Band-Aid had just been placed on them. So this was the start of the revelations. And so when I was lying in recovery and just processing through life and experiences, I started to realize, I started connecting the dots and thinking about all of the different experiences I'd had working in the performing arts, in higher education, in not-for-profit sector, being a contractor, working for, the military. And I started to realize, I started to connect the dots, ladies. I started to connect the dots and understand my purpose, my calling, and why it was so difficult for people to process who I was and what I did. And that was because I had to have those experiences. I had to go through the things that I went through to come to this place where I am today, to be able to speak to, with authority, to speak into the lives of you, to be able to relate to your experiences, your trials, your tribulations, your pain points. See, nothing happens circumstance, ladies. That is my sincere belief. And until we get to that point where we've dealt with ourselves and we can walk in the knowledge and newness and the power of what I like to call the true you, we will keep spinning our wheels and staying on that wheel of insanity and subjecting ourselves to certain conditions or certain work environments or certain people that were not meant for us, that are not conducive to our healing, to our ability to start rebuilding, and certainly not to a transformation. So, we have a long way to go. And I shared earlier just a little history to put in perspective the time span, the battles that we as women have undertaken, the cause to stand up and say, I am woman, hear me roar. And it has not ended, ladies. And that's okay. That's okay. Because now we have the opportunity to come together in an even greater way to say, I am woman. I am my sister's keeper. And strong is the new sexy. And it looks good on a woman. Right, ladies? We need each other. We need individual and collective healing in order to rebuild, in order to transform our thinking. And that's where it starts. So as we wrap the show tonight, I want to leave you with that first pivot. That first pivot is in your thinking. I invite you to think without a box. And what does that mean? It does not mean forget your history. It does not mean bury your story or your history, which we'll talk about that later, because I'm a master barrier. That was one of the masks. I want you to say loud and proud that you are your sister's keeper, and you are a woman, and you are proud to be a woman. There's nothing, absolutely nothing, with being a woman in the workplace. There is absolutely nothing wrong with being a woman entrepreneur. It's your choice, and you have the right to choose. You have the right to decide. You have the ability. You are grace under pressure every day in the workplace. So you simply have to decide, ladies. You simply have to decide. Share your story. That's what Candid Conversations is all about. Sharing real life experiences. Sharing our circumstances so that others might find comfort, might find validation, might find hope. There's so much opportunity to pour hope into the world. And we women, we are the trees of life. We give life. We give light. It's time for us to step into that leadership role and to shine unapologetically. It's time to hold our heads high and be wonderfully proud of the fact that you are a woman and that you can do anything that is put before you. And it's okay if people don't get you, because you are not meant for everyone. You are a diamond. It takes time to refine it, right? To refine the diamond, to polish the diamond. A diamond has different surfaces. Different people like different cuts of diamond. Remember that. You are a diamond. So it's yours to choose to shine unapologetically. Keep refining. Hold your head high. And I hope you will continue to participate in these candid conversations. If you've found anything of value that I've said tonight, and just sharing a little bit about my story, I invite you back next week. I invite you also to visit my website, my online home, definingpaths.online. Find out what I'm up to. Explore. I encourage that. See if Candid Conversations is what you want to be a part of. See if what I'm up to in the world is what you're about. And then make that decision, make that commitment, and let's walk this thing out together. Let's heal, let's rebuild, and let's transform from the inside out. I want to also invite you to and encourage you to send any questions that you might have to conversations@definingpaths.info. Conversations@definingpaths.info. And ladies, remember, strong is the new sexy. Define your path and love the skin you're in. I'm DocV, the Pivot Maestro, and always your corner woman. I'll see you next week.